And we begin tonight with a deadly flash flood tragedy in Arizona, with rescue operations ongoing and the weather threat there not over yet.
Fast-moving water sweeping away a group of swimmers in northern Arizona.
Trying to rescue this guy and his 1-month-old baby.
One woman capturing the horrifying moments on camera.
There's the son over there and the mom's in the water.
Water, mud, trees, and debris rushing down a mountain, flooding the creek below.
Finally got rescuers on site.
At least 9 killed, 2 of them children, 4 rescued. But tonight, the desperate search for 3 still missing.
One of the witnesses said he looked up and saw a wall of water coming toward him.
Choppers scouring the rough terrain for survivors. The flash flooding triggered by torrential rain beating the windows of this waterfront restaurant.
The whole dock is flipped over, broken on all sides.
That blinding rain bending trees, sending people running for cover.
When it rains up here, it really pours. And not only that, it knocks down trees.
This dust storm near Phoenix packing 40-mile-per-hour winds. Visibility less than a quarter of a mile. This landspout tornado tearing across the highway. And tonight the search continues for those missing swimmers. Officials telling us that wall of water that swept them away more than 6 feet high, rushing at nearly 30 miles per hour.
Torrential rains lashed the central regions of Korea over the weekend, triggering floods that left at least 4 people dead and 2 others missing. The city of Cheongju in Chungcheongbuk-do province was among the hardest hit, seeing over 300 millimeters of rain. Landslides in the city left 2 people dead, while a farmer and a camper in Gyeongsangbuk-do province, who had earlier been reported missing, were also found dead this morning. Road and rail traffic across the region saw severe disruptions, while hundreds of residents had to evacuate their homes to escape the floodwaters. Rescue and restoration efforts are well underway, and we'll bring you updates as we learn more.
Storm Talas has hit central provinces of Vietnam, killing at least 1 person. Authorities in Nghệ An province say a woman died after the roof of her house collapsed. 10 people are missing after a cargo ship transporting coal sank. Flights to and from airports in central provinces were cancelled until further notice. Talas has been downgraded to a tropical storm. It's the second to hit Vietnam since the start of the year.
Much of southwest China has been struck by heavy rain and strong winds that have caused landslides and power cuts. The authorities say 49 tourists who'd been camping on an island off the south coast were rescued as a typhoon approached. These pictures show another rescue operation in a mountainous area of Hubei province. Around 40 local tourists were taken to safety after becoming stranded. Roads were cut off when rocks and trees came crashing down from the mountains. Further west in Sichuan province, strong winds brought down trees and smashed windows in tall buildings in Mianyang city, according to Chinese television. The rainstorm also washed out several roads. A national highway connecting Sichuan to the east collapsed, the authorities opening up a temporary emergency passage.
In India, officials there say floods have killed at least 4 people in the western state of Gujarat. 6 others are still missing. Transport has been disrupted on major rail networks and dozens of highways, and power to more than 100 villages has been cut. In the northeast, heavy rains have killed at least 85 people in the past 9 days. Some 1.75 million people have been affected in Assam state, with tens of thousands relocated. Monsoon rains in India regularly cause floods and also waterborne diseases.
dozens of wildfires continue to rage in at least 10 western states. A fire near Santa Barbara, California, destroyed at least 50 buildings. And now the company that owns the world's largest firefighting plane claims federal officials are keeping it grounded, putting homes at risk.
Firefighters are using every tool, waging war on the Whittier fire just north of Santa Barbara, California.
There's a lot of variability, a lot of uncertainty, but you're going to be in another firefight today.
After more than a week, this wildfire is still going strong, consuming more than 18,000 acres of land. Newly released dashcam video shows crews trying to reach a group of trapped campers blocked by a wall of fire. Friday night, the flames exploded again, forcing more people to leave their homes.
So now it's rush, rush, unpack the house because I don't know if it's going to be here when I get back.
The body of the blaze has stayed hidden in the hills of the Santa Ynez Mountains, making it difficult for firefighters on the ground to get up close. They've relied on a fleet of 16 helicopters and 4 fixed-wing planes to make airdrops along the rugged terrain. The largest is a DC-10 that can douse flames with up to 12,000 gallons of fire suppressant. But sitting at an airport is the supertanker, capable of dumping more than 19,000 gallons of liquid at a time. The Boeing 747 was converted from a passenger plane into a firefighting tool that's been used in Israel and Chile. In a proposed contract, the U.S. Forest Service would limit firefighting aircraft to 5,000 gallons of suppressant, leaving global supertanker's powerhouse plane grounded for now.
With ISIL losing its hold in both Iraq and Syria, concerns have been raised now over the future of the children there, indoctrinated by the group's brutal ideology. At the height of the power, Islamic State raised an army of children, the so-called cubs of the caliphate. Those youngsters were taken to special training camps where they were given an education not in literature or arithmetic, but in extremism and executions.
Islamic State leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is still alive and hiding in Syria. That's according to Iraqi and Kurdish counter-terrorism officials. Despite several Russian reports of his death, among others, a top Kurdish counter-terrorism official says he's 99% sure that al-Baghdadi is not dead and located south of the Syrian city of Raqqa. The official says to have information supporting the claim. Now, in an interview, he added, quote, "Don't forget his roots go back to al-Qaeda days in Iraq. He was hiding from security services. He knows what he's doing."
Israel has rejected the U.S. and Russian brokered ceasefire in southern Syria, saying the deal leaves Iran free to threaten Israel's security. Speaking at a joint press conference with French President Emmanuel Macron, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said the deal allows Iran to set up a long-term presence on Israel's northern border, which Israel has repeatedly warned that it will not tolerate. Netanyahu noted that while Iran is meant to keep 20 kilometers from the border under the deal, it would still leave the Islamic Republic free to establish naval and air force bases in war-torn Syria.
Speaking at a press conference from the Élysée Palace in Paris, French President Emmanuel Macron stood side by side with Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu and called for a restart to Middle East peace talks. Following several meetings with Netanyahu, Macron said he's, quote, calling for the resumption of negotiations between the Israelis and the Palestinians within the framework of a two-state solution. Israel and Palestine living together side by side within secure and recognized borders with Jerusalem as its capital. Netanyahu responded in his statement saying he's, quote, made it clear that Israel's view is that the root of the conflict is the Palestinian refusal to accept a Jewish state in any boundaries, though he didn't reject the idea of peace talks outright. Macron's statements are very much in line with his predecessors in the French government. Where he stands apart is in his firm stance that anti-Zionism and anti-Israelism are one and the same as anti-Semitism, and that he will not tolerate it at all.
And Now, still in Israel, Israeli ministers gave initial approval to a bill aimed at making it more difficult for the government to hand the Palestinians parts of Jerusalem as part of a future peace deal. The bill, proposed by the far-right Jewish Home Party, determines that any ceding of lands considered by Israel to be part of Jerusalem would necessitate a two-thirds majority vote in parliament. Now, the current law requires the consent of at least 61 members of Knesset for handing over sovereign control of any part of Jerusalem to foreign governments or agencies, but the new bill increases that threshold to 80 members of parliament, a number that would make it nearly impossible for any government to obtain approval for dividing Jerusalem.
We begin in Jerusalem, where new security measures at the entrance to the Temple Mount are continuing to spark outrage. Members of the Arab public are warning that the metal detectors implemented after Friday's terror attack in the Old City will, quote, only worsen the conflict. They're now calling on fellow worshippers not to enter the site. Israel reopened the Temple Mount to Muslims yesterday after a temporary closure following the attack in which 3 Arab-Israeli terrorists shot dead 2 Israeli policemen. The weapons are believed to have been stashed away inside the already heavily guarded area. Overnight, Palestinians clashed with police and held prayer rallies outside the Lion's Gate, the entrance to the mount.
We reject any changes, as we refuse to be remembered as the ones who have accepted those changes to Al-Aqsa Mosque. We will stay outside until we get back Al-Aqsa Mosque the way it was when we were forced out of it.
Well, the Sheikh has made it clear that he sees these metal detector gates as totally unacceptable and illegitimate. Here he comes now. We wait to see how this confrontation proceeds. Beyond the melee, brief talks ended in a standoff between clerics and the police, between Israelis and Palestinians, that has the potential to spread.
Iran said Sunday an Iranian American has been sentenced to 10 years in prison for spying. An Iranian judicial spokesman spoke in a video statement carried by the semi-official news agency Fars News. Left undisclosed in the statement were the identity and gender of the Iranian American and the dates of the trial and arrest. The statement specified the person was arrested and put on trial for gathering information. The sentence can be appealed according to Iranian law. The convicted person has 20 days to appeal a sentence.
Turkey's president again said he supports reinstating the death penalty, a move that could further complicate the country's relationship with Europe. President Recep Tayyip Erdogan marked the anniversary of a failed coup with a pair of speeches in which he said Turkey needed to forge its own path. Turkey was first recognized as a candidate to join the European Union in 1999. The country has been working to join the Union ever since. But reinstating the death penalty would probably knock Turkey out of consideration for good. In fact, the president of the European Commission wrote in a German newspaper that if Turkey embraced the death penalty, the country would definitively slam the door on EU membership. When Erdogan's AKP party won the country's general election in 2002, he was seen as having strong European ambitions. This recent speech suggests he's moving away from those original goals. Closing the door on the EU might not be a good idea politically, though. A recent survey found about 76% of Turkish people still wanted to join the union.
The Turkish president vows to, quote, chop off the heads of traitors on the first anniversary of the 2016 failed coup.
But it's a fact that without crushing the pawns, we cannot get to the other players in the chessboard, and we cannot get to the king. For this reason, we will decapitate these betrayers first.
Well, the Turkish army says 17 soldiers have been injured in a PKK attack in the southeastern province of Hakkari. The terror group targeted a military vehicle with a roadside bomb. 4 of the injured soldiers are in critical condition. The PKK is considered a terror organization by Turkey, the U.S., and the EU.
Pakistan has launched a major military operation near its border with Afghanistan in an effort to stop the Islamic State militant group gaining a foothold there. A military spokesman said the operation in the restive federally administered tribal areas was intended to virtually fence the country off from the growing ISIL presence in Afghanistan. While the Islamic State has already claimed multiple attacks in Pakistan, including one on a famed shrine in February, which killed 75. While Islamic State started to show a presence publicly in Afghanistan in the second half of 2014 and expanded quickly there when several Taliban commanders declared their allegiance to the group. It suffered reversals in 2016 in the wake of attacks from U.S. and Afghan forces. And its branch leader Hafiz Saeed Khan was reportedly killed in a U.S. drone strike on July 25, 2016. Pakistani authorities have always denied the existence of the group in Pakistan, and they now plan to fence 2,600 kilometers of the border to keep ISIL out.
The measures I'm announcing today will ensure that the ADF is more readily available to respond to terrorism incidents, providing state and territory police with the extra support to call on when they need it. We have to stay ahead of the threat of terrorism. We have to constantly review our law enforcement capabilities.
Under the proposed amendment, the government would be able to call for military assistance at any time if a terror incident has been declared. Turnbull stressed the responsibility of dealing with future attacks would also remain to the police, but the military could provide support. A local inquiry found the Australian police failed to respond quickly enough to end the central Sydney cafe siege in December 2014. It is regarded as Australia's deadliest incident launched by ISIL attackers.
TechRadar has reported that Australian Prime Minister Malcolm Turnbull has claimed that his country's laws prevail over the laws of mathematics in response to a challenge from a tech journalist who brought up the futility of policing encrypted messages. This new bit of fun comes after Prime Minister Turnbull recently announced the Australian government's intention to force the companies responsible for encrypted messaging services to cooperate with Australian security and law enforcement agents by decrypting communications that potentially relate to high-level crimes.
On Monday, Brexit Secretary David Davis launches a first round of negotiations on Britain's withdrawal from the European Union.
There's a French plot to steal London's crown as Europe's financial centre, says a leaked memo from the city's Brexit envoy written to the government and banking sector.
The meeting with the French was the worst I have had anywhere in the EU. They want disruption. They are crystal clear about their objective: the weakening of Britain, the degradation of the City of London.
Let me tell you more. This memo was written after Jeremy Brown held talks in Paris earlier this month, apparently, with banking chiefs, senior politicians and diplomats. He then wrote that the French see the British as adversaries, not partners, and that the EU countries who do want to remain friends have been marginalised. He also blames what he describes as the giddy effect of the recently elected President Macron as an assertive collective endeavour to ruin the UK economy.
I think it's possible now that Brexit doesn't happen. I think it's absolutely necessary that it doesn't happen, because I think every day is bringing us fresh evidence that it's doing us damage economically, certainly doing us damage politically. I think public opinion is moving on it.
And now Venezuela's opposition party says that a woman's been gunned down as polls are closing in the country's unofficial referendum against a new constitution. Opposition party says a paramilitary gunman also shot and injured 4 other people in the capital, Caracas. Nearly 20 million people are expected to cast their ballots in this referendum that aims to challenge the government's bid to rewrite the Constitution. Opposition-organized plebiscite is described as an act of disobedience by the Venezuelan government, with supporters of President Nicolas Maduro urging officials to boycott the voting. Maduro, however, called for, quote, a peaceful participation in the political event.
Thousands rallied in Poland's largest cities on Sunday against the ruling party's judicial reforms. The opposition said the new legislation would kill the judges' independence and undermine democracy. Late on Friday, the country's parliament, where the Law and Justice Party has a majority, passed a bill giving parliament a greater say in appointing judges. Critics said the changes violate the constitutional separation of powers. The police estimated around 4,500 people protested in Warsaw. The Warsaw City Hall said the number was above 10,000.
The South African president has called for an acceleration of land redistribution between white and black farmers in the country. He added that, if necessary, this may include expropriation without compensation. Local farmers who we spoke to say it's a dangerous approach.
That's what we're going to do. That's what we're planning, to go take the land.
I'm worried about and I'm very scared.
Expropriation of ground without payment, I was very worried. The land is there to feed the people.
They just need the land to stay on, and they will not produce any food for this country.
I won't feel comfortable with the land taken by force from somebody else, because it will deprive that person all the inputs he has put into that land. They've worked so hard to be the breadbasket of the country. You cannot remove the people who are supplying with food for the entire nation.
I think he's playing a politic game. He wants the farms to get votes because the ANC is now losing votes.
And another good deed being punished. Have you heard about this? A 70-year-old Army veteran working at Home Depot tries using his military training to stop a trio of shoplifters. You wouldn't think that was a problem, but the intervention cost him his job, one that he says he needs. The former employee throwing a paint roller extension at the suspect's feet, as they tried getting away with thousands of dollars worth of tools. Well, Home Depot defending its decision, saying that it is a store policy not to confront shoplifters. So he's out of a job.
Small town of Belle Plaine was the site of a large prayer-filled protest today as more than 100 people showed up to speak out against a satanic monument.
Holy Spirit, we live.
Now, this all stems from a statue of a soldier praying over a grave marked with a cross that was used in the park's designated free speech zone. The family, though, removed that statue last night, but a religious freedom group threatened to sue over it, and soon after, the installation of the satanic monument was announced.
Recently, a panel of scientists have taken a deeper look at the potential global effects of the nuclear arsenals of several of the world's major powers. The group aimed at discovering just how possible nuclear winter was with different types of weapons, as well as how many nuclear detonations it would take to cause the slightly less devastating nuclear autumn. As the power of nuclear weapons has increased over the years, so have the potential consequences, with a single detonation leading to a global decrease in rainfall, crop yields devastated for up to 5 years, as well as massive radiation belts circling the planet. Earlier this month, almost all of the world's nations elected to ban nuclear weapons outright. However, all of the countries who possess nuclear arms, as well as their closest allies, boycotted the vote. One of the most prominent and exciting futurists alive today, Elon Musk has once again warned of the dangers that artificial intelligence could pose to the human race. While speaking in Rhode Island at the U.S. Governors Association, Musk warned that the regulation of AI must happen before it is needed and not after, saying normally the way regulations are set up is when a bunch of bad things happen. There's a public outcry, and after many years, a regulatory agency is set up to regulate that industry. Musk has been warning about the potential threat that AI poses for many years. In order to help steer the development of AI to benefit humanity as a whole, unconstrained by a need to generate financial return, Musk has invested a great deal into the development of AI.
Scientists in Fresno, California have a plan to reduce the mosquito population by dumping 1 million of them into the environment every week. It may sound outrageous, but there's science behind it. The field study is called Debug Fresno. Fresno County partnered with Mosquito Mate and Google's sister company Verily to breed millions of male mosquitoes. Now, male mosquitoes can't bite, and these bugs have been treated with a specific kind of bacteria that makes them sterile. So over time, the population will naturally decrease. That's good news because the species of mosquito being used is an invasive species that can carry and transmit Zika and other diseases. The study will take place over a 20-week period. It will be the largest of its kind, with 25 times more mosquitoes than last year's pilot release in Fresno County.
Who's the little guy with you?
Yeah, my son, Jacob. Say hi.
Hi, young man. What's your name?
Jacob.
Jacob? Come up here. See if you can help me out. All right, I'm having trouble with this case because I have a situation where your dad is charged with parking on a street up on the east side. And I have three choices. I can fine him $90, I can charge him $30, or I can charge him nothing. What do you think I should do?
30.
30. Have you had breakfast yet?
No.
No. Well, suppose I make a deal with your dad, okay? And the deal is that if he'll take you out for breakfast, then I'll dismiss the ticket. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
You like that? Now, I want you to order up a pretty good, I want you to order a lot of stuff because he's going to be saving $30. Is that a good deal?
Yeah, just a little bacon.
Okay.